The Toronto Raptors, a team that is in the middle of a rebuild and desperately trying to find their course of action. Ever since acquiring Brandon Ingram last year and then signing him to an extension, it was clear that Toronto Raptors thought what they had at their core is something that can help try and bring them into competitiveness. However, it's become more and more evident. Can this team really compete? Or is it really time to just embrace the rebuild and to let it all go to try and actually get their superstar caliber player? We're back today with another episode of the Rebuild Report, and we are going to look at how Toronto's rebuild, I think, has gone south. And I think part of the reason that this team has started to go south is that the Toronto Raptors have gone all in on Scottie Barnes. Now, this is not me trying to say that Scotty Barnes is a bad basketball player by any means, because he's not. However, is he the face of the franchise good? I don't think so. And I think when you look at his statistics, I think we're getting pretty close to what Scottie Barnes can be at his peak. I think at his absolute best, he could probably crack a consistent 20 plus points a night. Otherwise, I think what he's giving you is good. I just don't know if it's face of the franchise good. And I also think we have reached a point where this team is very repetitive in their identity. Toronto thinks that they found their formula. Right? Get a bunch of different kind of wings that can switch everywhere and score and do whatever they need to do. However, I also think it's become more and more clear that it's not necessarily good enough. Again, I think Scotty's a good all-around player, but I'm not really sure if there's much more to what he is right now. And he's young, so he could definitely prove me wrong, and I would rather he prove me wrong, right? Again, this is a young player. I don't want to be right, but now he's about to be 24, and you're reaching a point where if he's going to make that jump, it's going to be right around now. I think with Scotty, I think we have seen his absolute best. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure if it gets any better from here. So again, when you look at the rebuild, you kind of have to start with who the face of the rebuild is. And I think it's Scottie Barnes. And again, has Scotty proved to be a good player? Absolutely. And he's shown legitimate promise. However, when you end up looking at it, at his best, I think Scotty's going to give you 28 and 6, maybe 21. And that's a good player. That's not, let's build around him and let's trade away pieces to get Brandon Ingram and let's go ahead and give Jakob Poeltl a huge contract extension because our window is right now. And that's where I think Toronto went wrong already. I think there's no issue extending Scottie Barnes or keeping him as a part of the future. I just don't think he's really the guy that will take this team over the top. And then I want to talk about Brandon Ingram, who they, moved as much as they could to try and get, and then immediately re-signed while he has not played a single game for this team yet. With the addition of Brandon Ingram to the Raptors, two major concerns have come to my mind. And I already sort of mentioned it in the beginning of the video. I think it's the abundancy of redundancy. I think that this team has a lot of similar archetypes, and I don't think that those archetypes are meant to be surrounded by the same archetype in everybody. Then I think, again, Brandon Ingram is a very good player, and I'm a big Brandon Ingram guy, but he plays very similar to Scottie Barnes in some ways. He's not the defender Scottie is, that's for damn sure, but I would argue he's just as good of a passer and facilitator. And he's definitely the guy I would prefer in a scoring situation. But when you look at his injury history these past couple of years, he's not always going to be able to give you those consistent starts. So that at that point, I've almost got $80 million wrapped in Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram alone. And that's before looking at RJ, before looking at Quickley. I think that this team, if one of those guys go down, right, and Scottie's been relatively healthy throughout his career, RJ was pretty healthy. But Ingram, the dude's cracked 60 games one time in the past 4 seasons. He didn't even crack 20 last year. And again, Ingram is he's a legit player, very legit, right? He's gonna be the leading scorer on this team. But I think at a certain point, it's also like, is this really good enough? I think that's my biggest problem with this rebuild. And when we're getting into the report about this rebuild, is this really good enough? Like, is this really what you want to sell your fans as like, this is us throwing our hat in the ring to compete? I know that no Toronto fan in their good mind is going to sit there and try and argue with me. Well, we're actually going to be very good this year. We're going to be a legitimate contender for years to come. No. Okay, you trade RJ. Cool. You already paid Jakob Poeltl a crap ton of money, so I don't know what the move with that was. You could have drafted a guy like Kaman or even my guy Thomas Sorber. You went with Colin Murray-Boyles, another wing who doesn't really shoot. I feel like Brandon Ingram as a player is the amalgamation of the problems of the Toronto Raptors rebuild. which is they've tried to find a mold and hoping that spamming the mold would make them just this excellent team. And I think all it's shown it is you need a diversity on your squad. You need guys that can do different things in a different capacity and quality. And then I sort of want to talk about them hedging their bets in on Emanuel Quickley. Emanuel Quickley is a player who I think part of it is health injuries and all that. But even when he has played for this squad, he hasn't necessarily looked that good, right? And I get it. You look at like the 3-point numbers and they're going to be very high, right? Like the 3-point percentage, he's a sniper, right? 38%, 7 threes a game. That's elite. 42% from the field, I'm not sure. Like, again, I think he's a cool passer, ball handler, but I feel like the way he plays is a really good six-man. Like, and that's what he was with the Knicks. He literally got second the year before he got traded. But I don't think this guy is meant to be a high-minute volume guy. Even then, when you look at the total sample size, he only played 38 games with Toronto last year and then 33 this year. He's not worth this contract that they've given him. But at the end of the day, right, what is this going to do? Like, what is Emanuel Quickley as your starting point guard really going to bring you? Again, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I think he's a perfectly fine player. I don't know if he's worth 30 M's a year. And then the defensive liability he brings, I feel like they've hedged their bets on this team without even really seeing this team play. Again, Brandon Ingram has not played a single minute for the Toronto Raptors. Quickley's only played 33 games. Ingram's not guaranteed to play that many games. What are the odds you're going to see that starting five play together for long stretches of the season? Not very high. And this is the team that you've dumped all your money into. You re-extended Jakob Poeltl, who, by the way, is a perfectly good player, but you could have traded him to try and get, draft assets, capital. You're telling me a team like the Lakers wouldn't have given up a pick or something for him? I believe this Raptors rebuild is in shambles. I think they tried to hedge all their bets on this Scotty Barnes future, and I think they're going to pay the price sooner rather than later. So as always with the rebuild report, I try my best to give you guys my opinion on the current standing of the rebuild. And I think, quite frankly, this rebuild is in a lot of trouble. Again, is it horrible? No, because they have good pieces. It's not so much like they've just drafted bum or bust after bust, and now they just don't know what they're doing. I talked about this in Portland Trailblazers rebuild report. Self-awareness is key in a rebuild. I do not believe the Toronto Raptors are legitimately self-aware of their situation. I believe that this team is destined for the 8th seed, 7th seed, maybe 6th seed, because the East is very hurt. And they'll win their playing games, and they'll play whoever's at the top, and they'll get their butts beat, and they'll go right back home. And they'll get a middling of the pack draft pick, and then they'll rinse and repeat over and over and over until a certain point where they don't have Brandon Ingram anymore. Scotty Barnes is cool, but you're not really repaying him for that much. I'm sure RJ Barrett probably got traded. Jakob Poeltl's for sure gone. At some point, you have to recognize when you can pull the plug. Last year, I think they doomed this rebuild. So if you ask for my grade, I'm giving them a D-, maybe an F. Because again, I think they've done well in the draft per se. Like, I liked the idea of Jacoby Walter with Grady Dick, and then you got Scotty, but then you went and got Ingram. Style's a little repetitive. RJ Quickley, I get, because you made that trade for OG. Cool, that's fine, makes sense. You had to get who you had to get. Quickley doesn't really look like he's your point guard of the future, and now he's making damn near 30 M's, so it's not like his contract's very easy to move. I think that this rebuild is really, really rough, and if you were going to ask me where they go from here, I don't know. I mean, you have to play this season out. You don't really got a choice. After that, I would look to move RJ and Quickley and Yak. Ingram's staying. At this point, he just is where he is. Same with Scotty. Like, that's your face for right now. I don't really think you can change that. So let me know what you guys think down below. I know this one was a little bit more grim than my Portland rebuild, but I think I had to just be honest. I think this Toronto rebuild is redundant, and I think the amount of redundancy that they have done is so crazy that I can't even in good faith try and tell you guys that this rebuild is going in a very good direction. So let me know what you guys think down below. Raptors fans, I'm sorry. I know this is more negative, and I try not to be that on this channel, but I had to give the honest opinion. Let me know what you guys think down below. As always, this was Answer No Soups. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Have a beautiful rest of your day, guys. Peace out.